Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the opening round of the 1958 season, the Argentine Grand Prix. But before we begin, as always, I would like to thank everyone for all the support. It really helps. Every little comment, like, subscription is making the channel more visible in YouTube's increasingly convoluted algorithm. I would also like to say hello to all the new subscribers. Welcome to the Madhouse. Last but not least, I would like to thank everyone who took part in the straw poll, which is a way for you guys to somewhat control Andy Higgs' career by choosing what teams he drives for in any given season. And that is a perfect segue into the next part of the video, which is taking a look at the poll results. So there were a total of 48 voters this time around, fewer than last time, but that's totally fine. Now let's break down the poll results. VRam and Ferrari each received 2 votes. Maserati received 3 votes, Van Wall 6, 7 people voted for Gandebian's privately entered Ferrari, and we have a situation here we haven't had in quite a while, and that is we have a tie for the top most voted teams, with both Lotus and Cooper Climax receiving 14 votes each. Longtime fans of the channel probably know how I used to deal with such an outcome, but if you're new, here is what I've always done whenever there was a tie. I just simply picked the team that classified lower in that particular season in real life. In our case, Cooper ended the season in 3rd whilst Lotus only managed to grab 6th, which means I, or rather Andy, will be driving for Lotus this season. And my teammate will be none other than Graham Hill. Once again, thank you for following this channel, for commenting, for leaving likes, for subscribing, and all that good stuff. I'm really appreciative of all the support you guys give me. Anyway, on to the next segment of the video where I will talk very briefly about the 1958 season. The 1958 season was held between the 19th of January and the 19th of October. It was made up of 16 races, 11 of which were part of the World Championship, whilst the other 5 were non-championship events. Mike Hawthorne managed to win the championship despite only winning 1 race, but he did manage to finish in 2nd 5 times. He scored a total of 42 points, or 49 if we are to consider the dropped points. Moss finished the season in 2nd with 4 victories and a total of 41 points, whilst 3rd place was awarded to Tony Brooks, who scored 31 points and won 3 races. The 1958 season brought along a plethora of changes to the sport, and the biggest one of these was the introduction of a new championship, the International Championship for Manufacturers, today known as the World Constructors Championship. And I will attempt to explain how the scoring system worked because it's not quite straightforward. But first, let's take a quick look at the real-life championship results. Van Wall won the very first Constructors title with 48 points, or 57 if we are to consider the dropped points. They won a total of 6 races during the season. Ferrari finished the season in 2nd with 40 points, or 57 with the dropped points. They won 2 races, and Cooper Climax were 3rd with 31 points and 2 victories. So the scoring system for the Constructors Championship is quite interesting. First of all, because only the highest placed car was awarded points. So if, say, Ferrari were to finish in 1st, 2nd and 3rd, only the Ferrari that was in 1st place received points. The Constructors Championship didn't benefit by the point awarded for the fastest lap. That was only awarded to the driver and not the constructor. And because the cars used in the Indianapolis 500 were built to different specifications, there were no championship points awarded to the constructors at that race. So as you can see, it's quite a needlessly complicated scoring system, but it will make a little bit more sense once we start putting points on the board. Moving on, there were a few smaller changes as well. For instance, shared drivers were still allowed, but neither driver would receive points regardless of where they finished. So basically you were punished for giving your car to someone else. That's a brief look at the regulation changes. There are a few more regarding the fuel used, but I don't think anyone is interested in that. However, there are a few more things I'd like to talk about before we take a look at the Argentine Grand Prix. 1958 proved to be yet another tragic season for the sport. A total of 5 people lost their lives during the course of the season, and they are in order of the races they died in: Pat O'Connor, who died in an accident during the Indianapolis 500. Later, at the French Grand Prix, Luigi Musa also lost his life in an accident. Peter Collins died during the German Grand Prix, and Stuart Lewis Evans died during the Moroccan Grand Prix. Mike Hawthorne, who won the championship, retired at the end of the season only to die 3 months later in a traffic accident, in an incident not too dissimilar to the one he was partially blamed for in the 1955 Le Mans disaster. On a happier note, this season was the first time ever when a woman competed in a race that counted towards the World Championship of Drivers. Her name was Maria Teresa de Filippis. Hope I pronounced that right. Anyway, with all that said, let's move on to the opening round of the 1958 season, the Argentine Grand Prix. It was held on the 19th of January. It had 10 entries, the lowest ever attendance at a race that counted towards the World Championship. All 10 drivers took part in the race and there was only one retirement. The race consisted of 80 laps completed in 2 hours, 19 minutes and 34 seconds. Juan Manuel Fangio started from first. This was one of only 2 races he took part in. Hawthorne qualified in second, Collins started from third, Berra fourth, and Luigi Musa started from fifth. Stirling Moss won the Argentine Grand Prix with Musa coming in second, 2.7 seconds later. Hawthorne finished the race in third, 12.6 seconds behind. Fangio crossed the line in fourth, he was 53 seconds behind, and rounding off the top 5 was Jean Berra, who was 2 laps down. 1 minute 41.8 seconds was the fastest lap of the race, and it was set by the master himself, Juan Manuel Fangio. So we're back in Argentina, which means the start of a brand new season. We are here at the Buenos Aires circuit, where a lap starts off with a long run down into turn 1, a long right-hander that tightens towards the exit. Turn 2 is next, a fast right-hander. Be very careful through here as there is a hill right after the corner, and immediately after that comes turn 3, a tight right-hand hairpin. This is followed immediately by a tight left-right chicane, and then a double apex left-hand turn. Next is a high-speed left-right chicane. Careful through the right-hander as it is slightly tighter than the left-hander. We then come through the penultimate corner on the track, a tight right-hand hairpin. Be extremely careful through here as there is a pretty nasty bump right on the corner apex. From here we go downhill and into the final corner of the track, a high-speed left-hander that brings us back onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the Buenos Aires circuit. And here we are in Buenos Aires, coming around to set our first qualifying lap of the session, a 1:43.676. Not very good, about 2 seconds lower than Maston Gregory's pole time, but we then come around to set a 33.28, which is a slight improvement, but not by all that much. I'm hoping to do even better if possible. And here we come around to set the last time of the session, a 1:42.024. That's the fastest I could manage to pull off. Probably could have done better, but oh well. And here are the previous Argentine Grand Prix winners. We haven't won here since 1955, so who knows, maybe we can do something good here, because we actually qualified quite well, as you'll soon see. We have Maston Gregory on pole with Harry Schell in second, Bruce Mclaren in third, with Andy Higgs in fourth. Very good qualifying, haven't done that in quite a while. Then we have Graham Hill rounding off the top 5. Sterling Moss is 6th, Joe Bonnier 7th, Jack Brabham 8th, Roy Salvadori 9th, Juan Manuel Fangio 10th, Von Trips is 11th, 12th is Luigi Musa, followed by Maurice Trintignant in 13th, Jean Berra is 14th, 15th is Lewis Evans, Peter Collins 16th, 17th Tony Brooks, Phil Hill 18th, 19th Gendebian, and at the very back of the grid we have Mike Hawthorne in the Ferrari, who only managed to qualify in 20th. So, here we are in Buenos Aires for the start of a new season, 1958. A lot of changes brought in this season, least of which is the Constructors Championship, so we have more things to worry about in terms of the championship, but that was a pretty decent start, although I did lose a spot to Graham Hill. Although as we come through turn 1 here, a couple of cars lose a control, and we managed to move back up into 4th, chasing after Sterling Moss at the moment, who is attacking Graham Hill. And here is another look at the start of the race. Kind of decent off the line, but it looks like Graham Hill had a slightly better start than us, so he managed to pull in front. So did Sterling Moss in the van wall. And now as we come through turn 1 here, we see a bunch of cars losing control. Not sure why you'd lose control on turn 1 on the first lap, but oh well. And here is a look at Sterling Moss later on during the lap. He lost control of his van wall coming through the high-speed chicane, and now he's driving under the grandstands there, and eventually ends up crashing into a pole and losing his front left wheel. Next we have Luigi Musa in the number 2 Ferrari. They're coming through the high-speed chicane, losing control of the car, flips it over. He then tries to turn back, but gets collected by a fellow Ferrari driver. He then gets back onto it, but eventually hits the foot of the grandstand, loses his front right, and he is out of the Grand Prix. As well as we now move on to lap 2. We are currently in second. Maston Gregory is leading the race with Lewis Evans behind us. We already built a 25-second gap on Jack Brabham actually at this point. He just overtook Evans, so that's quite something. And here we see Mike Hawthorne in his Ferrari coming around through the double apex left-hander. He loses control, and then a fellow Ferrari driver comes around and, well, flips him over. That actually looked quite intentional. And this is Harry Schell in his VRam coming through the tight chicane, loses control and flips the car upside down. Next we have Von Trips in his Ferrari. He comes through the high-speed chicane and flips his car upside down, as we see VRM also flipping. Then we have Juan Manuel Fangio, who collects one of the Coopers, loses his front left, and he is also out of the Grand Prix. And finally we have Tony Brooks in his Cooper coming into the high-speed chicane, loses control of the van wall, crashes into the tree there, and he is out of the Grand Prix. As well as we move on to lap 3 here, Maston Gregory is still leading the race. Tony Brooks was behind us, however he did retire. We saw that just a few seconds ago. And now we are taking a look at Phil Hill in the Ferrari, losing control of the car as he exits turn 1 and then gets collected by one of the BRMs, gets flipped over, and that was Olivier Gandebian's number 7 BRM, who comes around out of turn 1, crashes into the Ferrari and loses his front right wheel. So that is the end of their races as well, and there we see them on the track. As I'm still chasing after Maston Gregory here on lap 4. He's about 12 seconds up the road and always building a gap and then losing a few seconds through some corners. And here is Olivier Gandebian losing control of his yellow Ferrari, hits a car, loses his front left, and he is out of the Grand Prix. Now we have Jean Berra coming through the high-speed chicane, loses control of the car, flips it upside down, and he is also out of the Argentine Grand Prix. We now move on to lap 5, still chasing after Maston Gregory. The gap to him is now 16 seconds. We are 1 lap in front of Jack Brabham. We are in second, and well, we already have a bunch of retirements. As we now take a look at another retirement, this is Peter Collins in his Ferrari. He lost control of his car coming into the high-speed chicane, and then he kind of gets stuck on the tree there, and actually he doesn't retire, he stays there for the rest of the race. This is Bruce Mclaren coming into turn 1, loses control of his car, hits the I believe Cooper, I think that was, I'm not sure. He's out anyway. He ended with his car upside down, and obviously he's out of the Grand Prix. Now we have a look at Roy Salvadori, the reigning champion, who comes into the high-speed chicane, loses control of the car. However, he keeps it on the road, manages to turn around, but then crashes into an invisible wall, loses his front left, and he is out of the Grand Prix, unfortunately. I know it looked like he crashed into that tree, but it wasn't quite so. And on lap 10, Maston Gregory also retires from the race, which means we take the lead of the Argentine Grand Prix here. And here's a look at Maston Gregory in his Maserati. He comes around. The Cooper in front of him lost control of his car. Then Gregory hit him, causing him to go off track, and for some reason he decided not to try and rejoin the track. Instead drove straight into the cameraman's post there, lost his front left, and he is out of the Grand Prix. As on lap 11 here we are coming up on a back marker who loses control of his car through the double apex left-hander. And here is a look at Maurice Trintignant, who lost control of his Cooper and collected someone. He is out of the Grand Prix. As we now move on to lap 12 here, we are in the lead. I have no idea who's behind me at this point, and we are now taking a look at Stuart Lewis Evans, who loses control of his van wall. He tries to come back around, and there is Trintignant coming around, crashing into Evans and ending both their races. So that is that for them. As we now move on to lap 12, I still have no idea who is in second place. We are obviously leading the championship, and we shall move towards the end of the race here on lap 28, coming around to take the win in Argentina. I believe Graham Hill isn't finished in second, although he was 7 laps down, which means he isn't classified. Maston Gregory actually managed to post the fastest lap of the race, and I guess he would have won if he would have been able to stay in the race long enough, but unfortunately he was unable to keep his car in the race. And here are the retirements. 19 people retired, obviously. Well, Graham Hill and Jack Brabham technically didn't retire, but they didn't complete 90% of race distance, so they don't really count either way. But yeah, that was the opening round of the 1958 season. Quite disappointing, although nothing surprising. It's kind of how things tend to go here in Argentina. But anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 66th Grand Prix. His best start is from first, has 3 pole positions, has set 12 fastest laps, his best finishes in first, has completed 46 races, 40 of them in the points, has won 25 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 3 in Monaco, has 5 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 271 points, has retired 20 times, has experienced 1,527 out of 1,865 laps, has 5 bronze trophies, 5 silver trophies, 25 gold trophies, and as an extension, 25 podiums. And here is a very quick look at the championship standings. Andy Hicks takes the lead. Maston Gregory, who managed to post the fastest lap of the race, takes second, and that's kind of it. At the bottom we see Sterling Moss, although this order will change once we get to Monaco, I think. So that's pretty much it for the Drivers' Championship, and for the very first time we have the Constructors' Championship. Obviously, Lotus are the only ones who scored points, because our car was the only one that actually was classified that finished the entire race. Next would have been Graham Hill, but he is my teammate, and as such, only the points I made would have counted towards the season, so that is that. Disappointing race, I guess, for the opening season. Well, not for Andy, because winning is a good thing, but it's not a very good thing for you guys. It's kind of a boring experience. I know that, but unfortunately I cannot do too much about it, because the AI is quite stupid in these seasons. I really hope that one day the AIW files for these circuits will get fixed, but until then we can only hope. Anyway, our next race is the Monaco Grand Prix. We kind of saw how things go there, so I'm almost certain that Andy will be the only one who will finish that race. So yeah, quite an awkward start to the season, but hey, what can you do, right? Anyway, you can start voting for next season's team. There will be a link in the description that will take you to the straw poll where you can do so. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment, I'm doing a playthrough of the original Need for Speed Underground, although I'm starting to consider stopping that series and doing something completely different because the game is starting to get on my nerves. But if you're interested, there is a link in the description to that as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.